Today, we have yet another instance of a prominent individual within this hobby getting caught shill bidding. They flip-flop with their reasons for why it happened in the preceding days, and that's left me scratching my head, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I want to use this video to sort of challenge some of the things they've said and sort of add my 2 cents in with some other observations I've had over the last few months, and I want you guys to make up your own minds down in the comments below. Ultimately, I think this individual needs to share more information if they want to build trust and bring back trust to people that follow him on Instagram or people that follow his collection, because what has sort of gone down is a bit unacceptable and just flat out wrong, in my personal opinion. Now, this does relate to the P. Ryan collection, Patrick Ryan on Instagram. I'm not sure if you guys would have seen him before, but we spoke about him on the channel recently when it came to this Goat of Goats collectible that he put together. That was a card or item that he bought, I should say, that had Babe Ruth's autograph on there, and he subsequently built this up to have Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, and Lionel Messi added to it. We spoke about it in a recent video about it being a really cool collectible. Now, what sort of happened in the last few days is that a story post was made by P. Ryan talking about some of the cards he had for sale out at Fanatics. And unfortunately for him, and sort of lucky for the rest of the hobby, the screenshot he shared to show one of his auctions ending, and you can sort of see that over here from Paley Cards, he sort of said, another one of mine ending Thursday via Fanatics Collect. The reason why this is interesting is because of that red bar that you're seeing over there, because it does in fact show that he was bidding on a card that he is in fact selling. Now, most auction houses have things in place to prevent people from bidding on their own items, but in this particular instance, this card was consigned through Acquire, who is selling via Fanatics Collect for P. Ryan in this particular instance, meaning he could go ahead and bid on his card. He didn't realize that he shared this screenshot, and then people like Paley Cards question this, where they said P. Ryan collection is blatantly shilling. Now, the response from P. Ryan is where things get a little bit interesting. He says over here, a very fair call out here. He bid to follow the card because it's not being sold through my account. Of course, if I was doing something intentionally shady, I wouldn't have posted it for the world to see. Acquire.co is building an account portal to make this non-issue moving forward. But what's really key here is Patrick basically says that he bid on it intentionally in order to follow the card. Now, a lot of people seem to challenge this really quickly because you guys might not be aware, but Fanatics Collect actually has an option for you to watch a card for sale, sort of like you can do on eBay. The website's a little bit clunky in order to follow how you can go back and watch what you've watched, but the app works a lot better. But that functionality is clearly there, and he wasn't aware of it. Now, people would normally do that rather than shill bid on their own card. But like I said, this is sort of where things get interesting, because in the next day, I think it was maybe 48 hours later, he put out this Instagram live, which is still there for you guys to see. And where things get interesting here is that he said he bid on the card accidentally. So going from a flip-flop to what he said over here about intentionally bidding on the card so he could follow it, to it now being an accident. And he talks to it through the lens of him going through and bidding on a number of cards. And then he was like, shit, I bid on my own card. Fuck. And that's essentially what he talks to in this video over here. And he sort of puts the blame on Acquire on this, because he sort of says they need to have things in place to stop this from happening from people that are consigning their own cards. But what I think is that the important point here is that his story went from I bid on it so I could follow the card to now I bid on it by mistake. He said he basically bid on a stack of cards and then didn't realize one of those was his own card. Now, what he talks about here is also very interesting, is that apparently within hours, maybe even quicker than that, I might be wrong, go watch the Instagram live reel for yourself. He talks about contacting Acquire and saying to them, hey, I bid on my own card. Can you look into this? Can you fix it? Can you do something, right? Sort of saying, hey, I did this, please forgive me. Now, this is one of those things that I just find really hard to believe why the story would change. Like, you know, people don't intentionally go ahead and bid on their things to follow them, right? There's functionality here within those apps. And then my question would be, you know, how many other times has this sort of happened, and this is only being noticed now because you got caught red-handed? And the fact your story's changed makes me really, really uncomfortable. Now, like I sort of say over here, lots of people will be talking about this story. Actually, very little people talked about this outside of Instagram. But there's zero excuse or tolerance for people shill bidding. It's illegal, right? You can't be doing it. And, you know, like I say there at the very bottom, just click the watch or like button if you want to follow your own cards. It's a really weird response from him to say he did it to sort of watch the card. You know, like I said over here, I think Pat needs to share his bid history, but I don't know if that's going to fix anything. But fundamentally, if he's saying what he's saying here is legitimate, I think he needs to share his total bid history from Fanatics Collect to show every single card that he's ever sold on there. and we can see whether or not he's been bidding on them. Because to me, to have that story come out and then it flip-flops just looks dirty to me. And then I sort of want to add a few more 2 cents here. Like Patrick Ryan is somebody that I've been talking to for quite some time, over a number of years. So it's really disappointing to sort of see this happen. But, you know, as part of following him on Instagram, I've seen some comments from him that raise a few eyebrows, right? There was some stories recently where he talked about having some IP autos on cards that he had for sale on, I think, Golden or maybe even Fanatics Collect, and how they weren't selling for what he thought they were. I think that even some of them were some Back to the Future cards. And as you guys can see behind me, I'm a big fan of Back to the Future. But what he was sort of talking about was these things were selling so cheap. And I think for some of them, they were also selling for cheaper than what the fee cost to get the autograph in the first place. So he was, you know, practically breaking even or making a loss on some of these sales. So I think back to some of those listings and some of those posts from him where he's complaining about things not selling for as much as what he wanted them to. And you now have an instance of him getting caught shield bidding, and then to make that worse, he sort of doubled down on his story and backflipped on his story. It's like, is that a trend? Like, has he shield bid on things because they weren't selling for what he wanted them for? Or is it just a coincidence? I also think back to a story in the past that I covered where I talked about the guys from Slab Stocks. They're really popular now. They've got a big following with Tops. They've got a partnership with Tops. And I talked about how the hobby forgets issues of the past, right? Slab Stocks, historically, right? You can go on Blowout forums and read about this. They were selling a newsletter telling people, yes, you should just sort of buy these cards. Meanwhile, they were selling those same cards using their mum's eBay account. This is a known thing. This happened in, I think, 2018, 2019. They put out an apology video at the time. It's since been scrubbed from the internet. But you can see the remnants of that on the Blowout forums. And the reason why this is very interesting and very relevant is that Patrick had a conversation with me off the back of that and sort of said, you know, I think people deserve second chances, right? They were young, they made a mistake, so be it. But again, you've got individuals here selling picks to people. Meanwhile, they're secretly selling those same cards, and you want to cut them some slack. Like, to me, that is a line in the sand kind of thing. Like, yeah, people make mistakes, people deserve second chances, but when you're sort of a prominent person within an industry, you sort of don't deserve to get a second chance in that particular instance. So again, I asked that question. Is he willing to cut those people a second chance? Because he's also actively out there shield bidding, and he's sort of aligned to what they did. He didn't see a problem with what they did. You know, I might sort of be jumping to conclusions here, and you guys can make your own opinion. But when I'm seeing all these little things happen, I'm like, okay, are they related? And they could purely be incidental and coincidental and just be one-off instances. But I think those questions, you know, need to be asked. I also might be wrong on this, but I think he might be an investor in Slab Stocks, which is maybe why he's cutting them some slack. So that's some context there. I could be wrong on that. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, an investor in Collect, which is that, you know, news website specifically for card collecting that Darren Ravel runs. But it's one of those things that's just really disappointing. So I want to know what you guys have to say down below. Like, do you buy the story? I'm going to link the Instagram reel for you guys to sort of reference for yourself. He talks for a long time to give you some slack. Some people push back on that and said, well, not to give you some slack, to give you some context. Some people push back on this and sort of said, well, P. Ryan's taking a long time to explain. He's just talking nonsense. If you watch any of his reels, he often takes a long time to explain things similar to me, which you guys are probably hating me right now. But I just find it very odd. He sort of flip-flopped from his story saying he did it to watch the card and now it was an accident. And he sort of goes back and forth in terms of blaming Acquire throughout the video and sort of, you know, going around in circles a little bit. I want you guys to watch that after watching my video and make up your own mind. Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. But this stinks to me. This doesn't make any sense. And he sort of says, well, if I, you know, was intentionally doing this, wouldn't I be more careful when I've shared my screenshot? You know, people make mistakes, mate. People slip up. I don't think that's the sort of thing you can lean on to say why you did the right thing. And he also said he contacted Acquire immediately. Let's hypothetically say he did, right? Let's say that's genuine, right? He can prove it via emails. You know, if I'm a calculated individual and I'm somebody that's pretty switched on, and by all reports, he's a very successful businessman, if I wanted to do some hanky-panky, right, and I want to rort the system, do you not think, you know, I might think ahead and say, hey, I'm going to shield bid on my own cards and then intentionally have an email prepared to go back to people and say, hey, I did this by mistake. Can you please look into it in case it ever came out that I was doing the wrong thing? You know, that again might be really far-fetched. That's a valid question to be asking in this particular instance, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And again, to what I said earlier, if you are being genuine where you said it's a mistake, share your entire bid history from Fanatics Collect, from Golden. Tell us every single card you ever consigned with those businesses, and let's see how many times there's been overlap where you have, in fact, bid on your own card. He also said in his video over here, if he wanted to shield bid on cards, he would get a friend to do it for him. I just find this whole situation really weird. I recall in the past he was talking about someone like the sports card therapist when he got caught shill bidding, and he spoke about it being a negative thing. I just find it really ironic this is happening now. But all in all, the easy solution is going to be for him to share his bid history, because if there's nothing to hide, there's no problem with showing it. And he might not care. He's got all the money in the world. He gives a shit from his perspective. He doesn't care. But if he does care, and he was an honest mistake, for the people that follow him, he's got 20,000 followers on Instagram. I think, it would be the right thing to do. And like I said, I've been communicating with this guy off and on for the last couple of years, talking about, card collecting and sort of the things that he's chasing and what we're trying to do by, going with CGC as a company, because they provide better value for us as submitters. Like random conversations over years talking about cards, right? It's been fun. But for now, it's tainted. It's very different now. I'm not gonna do that. And obviously this is a different video from me. I'm not as fired up as I normally am with this sort of stuff, because it sort of caught me off guard, but by this guy sort of being somebody that I followed and communicated with, that I thought wouldn't do something like this. And, he says it's an honest mistake. I don't know if I believe him. The fact the story's flip-flopped, I don't know if I believe it. I don't think I do. And it's unacceptable. And I don't think, this stuff can be deemed as being okay. So you guys can share your thoughts down below, and I'll chat to you guys in the next one. Cheers.